2 more days until the fourth. Well, one more day now because it's on the East Coast. It's already third. It's still the second here in LA, but we are here on the second, entering the Sirius Gateway. These are the days, the next couple days, that the sun is the brightest in the sky. I love being outside on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Our mother star, the dog star Sirius, is directly aligned behind the sun. And so, since the closest star to the planet, 4 light years away, Sirius, it gives a little bit of an extra boost to the sunshine. And that's why on the America chose, I said chose, that's why they have a question. That's why America chose to put the 4th of July on today. One second. We're going to talk about Lupe in a second. We're going to talk about the Black Americans' relationship with America. It's about to go blank for like 20 seconds, y'all. Don't leave. I'm still here, okay? I just got to answer this text message real fast, all right? I got a text from Justin Hunt. Somebody had a question for me. So what we're gonna do is we're going to first talk about the Lupe thing, and then we're going to transition that into the Black Americans' relationship with America at 250 years. I want to have a conversation with y'all. You know what I mean? This is a family conversation. Everybody's invited to the conversation. You don't have to be Black American to be part of this conversation, but the Black American viewpoint on the United States at 250 is the dominant ideology today. Um, if you've come to America later on, Ellis Island, or in the last 50 or 60 years, welcome. But this is a conversation for the 250 years. Those of us who've been here 250 plus. Because we got I like having these conversations around this time. So what's up, Andrea Jones, Golden Heart, Artist Life? What's up, brother? What's up, Jay Jemison, POV Alaska, Humanes? I appreciate all y'all for joining. Appreciate all y'all for joining. Oh shit, this is my last tip. Well, my new shipment come tomorrow. So let's first talk about Lupe. Question number one, if you saw Culture United last night with Lupe Fiasco, me, Justin Hunt, L. Janelle, BK. Press number one if you saw press number one when you saw if you saw that last night. I did not know that people disliked Lupe that much. Hard advice said we can't get that time back. Hey, chill, chill. That was a fun show. You a fool, dog. So I want to I saw a lot of people had a lot of disdain for him, and I never really. I kind of have a rule. I personally don't really follow entertainers too much away from the entertainment side because I know how this entertainment game is, and I try not to get in people's lives and narratives because you don't know these people, so I don't get into the gossip, into the even if I see something go viral or highlight, I generally don't care. I don't care. I don't care. But the passion, I gotta bring this up because y'all were so passionate. Not y'all, but people were so passionate in everything he said. There was a fight. There was just a lot of fight, and I didn't get it. I even said it last night, and I even said last night, I didn't get it. And I'm not somebody who I can't sit around and say I'm a huge Lupe fan. No, I've always completely respected his music. Like I've always thought that he makes great music and his subject matter is awesome and he's amazing lyricist. And I've seen him live like 5 times, like 3 different times with Robert Glasper. And I've also gone to see him by himself. And these are the like Lupe Fiasco is everything you want in a rapper. But y'all be on his ass. And then I looked into his cards and I saw why. Spirit Money said you didn't read much of the comments, you were just listening. Hey, if I cut off, I'm coming back, okay? Like I see my signals kind of going back and forth. So if you see me freeze, we gonna keep going. We're gonna probably be here about 2 hours tonight, all right? So if you see me freeze and we ain't been talking like for 2 hours, come back. But I looked into his cards and I saw that okay, he's a 9 of diamonds, and I saw exactly why he struggles with people. 9 of diamonds have difficult relationships. They butt heads with everybody. Kanye West is a 9 of diamonds. Cat Williams is a 9 of diamonds. 50 Cent's a 9 of diamonds. That people of that card, they don't have the best filters, I should say. And they can tend to rub the people the wrong way because they're perfectionists. 9 of diamonds, they have high expectations, extremely high expectations, not only on themselves but everybody else around them, and they're very critical and cynical, borderline pessimistic. So once I saw his card, I was able to see, okay, I see why he gets the reaction he gets. But I wanted to say this before, because we're gonna spend most of the day talking about America 250. I want to say this. Part of the issue that I saw with Lupe, what's up, Miss Chan? A lot of what's going on right now, what happened on Lupe Fiasco, I'm looking at the like our show we did yesterday. Man, those clips are going everywhere right now. Those clips are going everywhere right now. And like one thing I'll say is the the major problem that Lupe is running into now is people have a very, very short attention span and they don't like to hear people out. Lupe is somebody that, as I got to understand him a little bit better, you have to hear him out long form because he sees things as an artist. He has multiple angles that he sees things from. And as a 9 of diamonds, he compartmentalizes how he sees things. And if you just listen to him in a compartment, he says things that are wrong, off, don't feel right. But if you listen to him in totality, he makes complete sense. If you ask what happened, Lupe Fiasco, we did a show yesterday, The Culture United, and he said that they took a clip where they said when he said that Nas is not a great lyricist, but when you listen to him all the way out, he was breaking down different components and different aspects of lyricism, and he was breaking down how he ranks lyricism, and he was saying that for him, he has a very, very high value on punchlines, and Nas don't is not a punchline rapper. So he was talking about Nas not being a good lyricist from the point of he's not a punchline lyricist. But Lupe also put himself into that category. He said he himself is also not a punchline lyricist. But when you chop up what he said, it can sound like what? And unfortunately for Lupe, we live in a world where people don't check the nuance of what people say. That's right. That's right. The guy you say all that shit's preference, right? Like food. I may like something you may not like, right? What's up, Bruce? What's up, Brian? Yeah, and Lupe is very detailed. And we unfortunately for him and his perception, we live in a world that don't give a shit about details. We live in a world that don't give a damn about nuance and people who don't have the patience and the time to listen and hear people out. You say a half a thing people don't like, then it's off with your head. Like I saw people in the comments saying, "Oh, he's just making excuses." Did people hear that when Lupe said that when he had that issue with his record label back in 2011, 2012, he had to basically restart his revision date for his masters. Like he doesn't own his masters, and he'll probably never own his masters because he had to basically sign over his reversion rights to get released from his contract. Yeah, Lupe's dope. I told you I got to tell you on the show yesterday. It's only one reason why I didn't really get into Lupe. It has absolutely nothing to do with his music, and it has everything to do with I had a girlfriend at the time that had a duck ass laugh, and she's the one that introduced me to Lupe Fiasco. She loved him so much every day. Lupe Fiasco, and she had this horrible laugh. It was like I can't even do her laugh, but that laugh was oh my god! Like she was a chick. I didn't even date that chick for that long. I think we dated for like 3 months. We didn't even date that long. My longest relationship before my wife was like 6 months long. But I was with this chick for like 3 months. We weren't even together for that long. But the first time I heard the name Lupe Fiasco was through her. And every time I would hear that name, I would hear her duck ass laugh. And then just like, oh my God. You know, now it's like some people, they make you cringe. She's one of them chicks that made me cringe with her duck ass laugh. So I always had that association with Lupe Fiasco and his ex-girlfriend's duck ass laugh. So I personally never gave him a fair chance. As much as I love daydreaming, as much as I love kick push, I've liked everything I've ever heard from him. So when I see the people's like people out, but I'm looking at a lot of people out there have a very, very, very strong emotional reaction to him. And I was just kind of like, damn, this is strong. Like, I understand you don't get what the brother said, but shit, at least hear him out, you know? But that's real talk artist life. This is coming off of a dot battle as well. So dot fans are still on 10 low key. That's true. And I'm a huge K dot. I love K dot. I love K dot, but I'm not gonna jump into like, okay, even I remember hearing words Lupe said 10 years ago about Kendrick, like little. I remember him saying things about Kendrick over the years, but I would never look at him like, okay, something's wrong with him. I just kind of take it like, well, that's just how he feels, and I think that's where we got to get as a people. If you want to be a decent, part of being decent as a person is just sometimes divorcing yourself from other people's opinions, even on people you like. Sometimes that's just how people feel. One of my tenants here in my building, he's a huge Drake guy. Like one of my tenants, I'm not gonna mention his name because I keep people's. I don't. The only reason why y'all know Teddy Ray used to live here is because I didn't put that information out there after Teddy Ray died. But Teddy Ray, when the 2 years Teddy Ray was one of my tenants, I never told y'all. that he was my tenant. I would say sometime if I mention him, I'll mention him from the point of view of maybe he's just coming to visit. But I wouldn't tell people where people live. But I have one of those academics Drake bloggers that lives in one of my units. He's one of my tenants, and he's tied in with academics. He's tied in with academics TV. And this dude is one of the biggest Drake stands of all time. I would read some of that nigga tweets and some of his Instagram posts, and I'd be like, "Nigga, you lucky I don't evict your ass." But even though I vehemently disagree with a lot of his points of views on music and all this stuff, me and dude is still hella cool. Even though he's part of that academics Drake, uh, and he be making moves too. He be in some shit. You know what I mean? I ain't about to sit here and mess up a personal relationship because of how that nigga feel about Drake. The fuck, I don't give a fuck enough about how that nigga feel. The hell I look like? Oh man, you can't be cool, man. You man, matter of fact, you need to get out my building because of what you said about Drake and K Dot. That nigga be saying some of the dumbest shit about Kendrick. And he one of my tenants. But we talked like 3 days ago. Like, whatever. Gotta mature past that, folks. Now let's get into it. And we can do some Q&A parts later on, but let's get into it. Black America at 250. Look, even if somebody is just being a hater, so I get it could be annoying, but what does it really matter? It's just a question I want to raise because one thing that's what we do here at the channel. I am the cultural heretic. Being a heretic means questioning commonly known beliefs, commonly things that are accepted. A heretic is the one that questions what's commonly accepted. And that's what I do. I question what's commonly accepted. And that's why my research is so thorough. Because I don't just take what you give me as the answer. I look into it, I investigate it, I get into the nuances. And that's why I appreciate Lupe's nuanced response. But nuance ain't about shit. Today don't give a damn about nuance. But let's get into the larger topic why you guys are here. The United States, the Declaration of Independence. It wasn't ratified until I forgot the exact date. I think it was August 18th, 1776. That's what we're talking, Miss Chan. Stands are doing too much right now, right? So let's get into America at 250. Like I started, the Declaration of the United States uses July 4th. That is completely astrological. It has nothing to do with that. You got to remember one of the fathers of the nation that they don't like giving credit to is Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker was not only a horticulturalist, he was also a scientist, and he was really big on astronomy and an astronomer. It was Benjamin Banneker that created America's first farmer's almanac. It was Benjamin Banneker that saved America from starvation because the seasons were thrown off because it didn't account for the quarter day in the calendar. It was Benjamin Banneker that reset America's calendar, reset America's farming. Benjamin Banneker designed the city of Philadelphia. He also designed the city of Washington, D.C. They say that, oh, he saw it from memory, and memory is the reason why he designed the city. Bullshit. He was part of the initial plans to begin with. And so when the French motherfucker decided I'm going back to France, the man that was with him the whole time, Benjamin Banneker, took over and designed DC. And the city of Washington, DC is designed within alignment of the constellation Virgo, which the state of Virginia is named after. Yeah, he made London's Big Ben. Right. So Sirius is the mother star that the United States acknowledges, and that's why the United States colors are red, white, and blue. You can't see it now because it's a summertime, but in September, when Sirius rises again in the early morning sky, you will see Sirius as she comes above the horizon. She shines the colors of red, white, and blue. You guys will see that in September when Sirius is coming up above the horizon. And in those colors, red, white, and blue, is how we get the stars and stripes and the colors of the stars and the stripes. Those colors, red, white, and blue, predate the United States of America. They predate modern Europe. That's the astrological connection. And this is why the United States celebrates the 4th of July on the 4th of July. It's all about the Sirius Gateway because, like I said, the Declaration of Independence wasn't ratified until August 1776. And the last battle with England was technically 1783, but in truth, the War of 1812 with with Britain was also when they burned the White House down. That was an extension of the American Revolution. So July 4th is not only the technical 250-year relationship of the United States of America, it's also 200 years since the death of Thomas Jefferson and Adams. Adams and Jefferson both died on July 4th, 1826, 6 hours apart. Two people who helped build the country and also who hated each other and undermined one another the whole way. So, why am I bringing all this up about Benjamin Banneker? I'm bringing this up because as Black Americans, we've been here for 250 years plus. My records go back to 1640, but they also go before that because that's just the, what they documented when the new governance came through to the colonies of Virginia. I have family in Prince George's County, 1670, Pennsylvania, 1660, North Carolina, 1640. And this isn't just one bloodline. This is different bloodlines who didn't know each other, weren't related. They were spotted all around the colonial times in the 1600s. Hey, Nini 64, chill. I will say this one thing that I did read in the cards, there's a Queen of Spades in Venus. So expect for major world leaders to step down between now and the fall. Either step down or get down. I don't know which one yet. But I did see that in the cards. So mark my words, you're about to see some major shifts. And not just political world leaders, business world leaders, people with high power positions. You're about to start seeing a reshuffling as we get later on in the summer. Book it. I saw it in the cards already. Queen of Spades and Venus. That means somebody of power of note is gonna be out of here, or somebody's. It may not be death. It might just be a resignation. You saw the Prime Minister of Great Britain just stepped down 2 weeks ago. Expect more of that. Okay. So let's go back to it. What's up, Go Gadget? What is our relationship with America as Black people? What's up, Andrew Como? As Black Americans, we have to ask, America's at 250. How do we view ourselves? And I don't have any complete answers right now, but I'm gonna raise some questions and make some comments. And check out the No Ceilings podcast with Glasses Malone. I recorded an episode of him last Friday. I'm not sure what day it's gonna drop, but check out the No Ceilings podcast with Glasses Malone. We had a dope conversation last Friday. That's right, Tony. He said we built and fought in every war. My family fought as colored troops. Right, right. We also got to know a lot of people who are now Jamaican, a lot of people who are now from the Bahamas. It was a lot of them that were here too. And I think that's why it's such a strong connection between the Caribbean and Black America musically, because a lot of those people were here too. They're ancestral indigenous Americans that when the Revolutionary War started, they sided with the British. And the British loyalists that were Black, they were, there was a treaty to where the ones who fought on the side of Britain were relocated to the Bahamas and Jamaica specifically. All throughout the Caribbean, but the highest concentration was the Bahamas and Jamaica. There were over 20,000 troops in 1776 when the war first, I'm sorry, 1783. In 1783, that were sent to Jamaica, who were held up in New York because Britain held on to New York the whole time of the Revolutionary War. And George Washington in America wanted to put these niggas into slavery. And they were like, no, no, no. So they had to honor the British and relocate them to Jamaica and the Bahamas. So, but you say you leave by the first legacy view on 4th of July. That's why we're having this conversation. It's very this is a very complicated conversation. The Black Americans' relationship with the 4th of July and with the United States, because we are co-creators of this country. We weren't just as slaves. One thing I want to bring up, though, one thing I want to mention and talk about is because oftentimes you hear people say, "Okay, we were the slaves." Let me say something. We were most definitely enslaved, and those slaves were mostly losers of Indian wars. That's where the majority of your slaves are. People who lost battles, Indian tribe versus Indian tribe, who were then sold off to the Europeans, whether it be the French, the Spanish, or the British, or the Dutch, as slaves. That's where the majority of your slaves come from, not Africa. Most of them were intertribal wars, that the losers of tribal wars became slaves. And you can look this up when you read. See, the good thing about Google Translate is you can read books from the 1700s that are written in French and written in Spanish and written in Latin. You can now read these books through Google Translate. So I encourage you to look up some books on. I would type in use your Chat GPT or Claude and ask for books that are available in PDF on different Indian and tribal wars. That's where you'll get these answers. And in these books, they give descriptive terms of the people and how they looked and what happened to them at the end of these tribal wars and how they were sold off into slavery here in the Americas. That's where you go for your evidence when I'm coming to come to this. Because Ramon James, I ain't seen Ramon in a minute. Because if you just read books written in the 20th century, and if you just read the books written in English, you won't get. Now there are a lot of books in English that tell the truth too now, especially if you read books written in like the 1860s, 1840s, 1820s, 1870s. They'll tell you a lot of the truth before the Rockefeller Foundation got its hands on education. You get Remember the Rockefeller Foundation got its hand on the education system in the 1890s. So the 1890s is when a lot of the stuff started to get rewritten. If you read stuff before the 1890s, 1880s, you'll get a lot of more truth. But you can also read books in now French and Spanish that are written because the French and the Spanish are the ones that really conquered the Midwest. America came in last, but the French and the Spanish did most of your conquering of what's now the Midwest and the West. And that's where the information lies, okay? So I'm just giving you nuggets on how to research and where to research. And some Liberia. So that's where you look. So we got to understand that Negro is an all Negro become an all-encompassing term in the early 1700s. In the 1600s, they still drew a lot of distinctions between Indians, colored, and the slaves and the Indians. They drew distinctions back then. It's about 1715, 1720 that you see term Negro become like the term black, you know? Like Negro was the black of 300 years ago. Negro became the all-encompassing term to whether you were in, freedman, slave, they all got classified into Negro. And you also got to understand the reason why Indians excluded black from their what their benefit to is because by then the European had infiltrated and became leaders of those Indian tribes. So yes, the Indians did exclude black, but you got to understand most of those Indian leaders who did that were Europeans, not real Indians. Make that very look now. Look at who's just go and look up the leader of the Cherokee now. A lot of the people who were so-called leaders of Indian tribes, what America did when it came to a lot of the treaties that they signed with America, the initial tribal leaders were killed anyway. Most tribal leaders didn't cut deals with America. So America would kill the leader, send the leader off, get people drunk, and assign somebody new as a leader, one of their mulatto children that they marry off into last generation. This person becomes the new leader. There's a book, and if I was on my computer, I would show it to you. God damn it, I wish I was on my computer. But there's a book I would like to show you. I have shit, I can't think of the name of it. But it's this white dude who writes about the revolution, and he's an Indian leader, but he's really somebody who married into the tribe. And some of your books of the Peacock Wars and the American Revolutionary Wars, I'm drawing a blank. I've talked about him on the show before. I see his face, but he's basically a white guy. So when you see a lot of the black people that were kicked off, it was because a lot of your white Americans, like Pocahontas, John Smith of Pocahontas, they married into the tribes, and those became the people making the decisions. Ramon James asks, "Bro, why did George Washington write to King of Morocco asking for his blessings?" I'll tell you why. Because Morocco lent America, Morocco lent money to America to fight the war. and Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent nation. There would be no internationally recognized United States without the country of Morocco. So if you look on in Washington.gov, um, George Washington, you'll see letters from, and I want y'all to Google this. Look up letters from George Washington to C.D. Muhammad. It's either 1879 or 1889. I think 1889. I think he wrote those letters. It's with a nine, but either 79 or 89. You see him kissing the leader of Morocco's ass. So yeah, that's Miles Davis back there. When it comes to people with a difference of opinion, a lot of difference of opinion, just no bad jokes. Or if they trolling, time them out. But they just got difference of opinion, let them ride because I'm teaching them something they don't know. But back to what we're talking about. Yeah, the Constitution is based on Moroccan law, right? Back to what we're talking about. When Let's go back to a point I was trying to make that I went off from. They always tell us that we were slaves and we built the country through labor. You hear this point driven all the time. It was our labor. It was our labor. It was our labor. It was our labor. And that's why we're entitled because of the labor. Let me tell y'all something. That will never fly. You can't, people who identify with white supremacy, the white supremacists, they're never going to respect the labor argument. Why? Because your white supremacists were the serfs, the labor class of where they come from. And their labor back in Europe did not entitle them to any level of ownership. We're not talking to power brokers here in America. That's what you got to realize. We're talking the people who run the country, Donald Trump, George Washington, John Adams, Rutherford B. Hayes, whether it be dealing with Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, or you go back to Woodrow Wilson. These were the thugs and dregs of society in Europe who were the labor force, and their labor did not entitle them to any level of ownership. So if we keep almost can and then another thing is when you're dealing with the new immigrant class, these new immigrant classes, that's the only thing they're good for here is labor. The Chinese, railroads, the Mexicans picking the strawberries, the Irish working the fields, the Cabbage Patch Babies. A lot of these people aren't even, these look like Cabbage Patch Babies. They were orphans. We've talked about that. The estimated 250,000 to 500,000 orphans in America between 1864 and 1920 and 1930. We're dealing with people who don't even know where the fuck they came from. They had to take an orphan train to their family, and when they got to their family as orphans, they were labored to push the Homestead Act. When the Homestead Act was put together, then white people weren't having 10 kids. They were mail ordering children. They're getting kids through mail. And those kids that were coming in through mail were the laborers of the land. Thank you, Juniper Joy. She's named Joseph Brent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Joseph Brent is who it was. Look up Joseph Brent's book. They love talking about Joseph Brent because he was white. But then when you read who Joseph Brent was, he was somebody that married into the family. He wasn't truly an Indian, but he's the face of what you get for life. Thank you. I appreciate that, Juniper Joy. Joseph Brent, look it up. Real talk, Chief. Nobody respects the horse pulling the carriage. They respect the driver. Real talk. So when it comes down to it, what you see is when we go around talking about we're the labor, what do you see now with immigrants? Immigrants built the country. Immigrants are the labor. And although that was true that we did build it with our labor, that is only 10% of the truth. That's only 5% of what we built. Our connection to this country is far deeper than labor. It's ingenuity, it's invention, it's class, it's luxury. We are the luxury and the morality and the class and the innovation of America. And we must own that. The reason why I have an American flag in my bio on Twitter is because that is the point of view of America that I connect to. To say, oh Lord, man, they enslaved us, and I don't like this country. They enslaved, we were slaves, and we was beaten and murdered and killed. And although that's true, I've had my pity party. Every society has its ups and its downs. And although it's true that we were enslaved, my family, Natchez, Mississippi, I got pictures of my family in Natchez, Mississippi, 1855, not being able to inherit the land because they were slaves. Uh, Texas, all throughout East Texas and Louisiana and Alabama. I have slaves all throughout my family, and especially Louisiana. But I also got freedmen in North Carolina and Indiana. We have to take ownership of the luxury of America is who we are. Let's start with luxury before we go. We know a lot of the inventions, and we'll get to the inventions too. But let's start with luxury. Do you know that a lot of the music that we know is chamber music, classical music with the strings, that was us. Francis Johnson, James Hemingway. Look up these names. Composers of the classy music. We invented the doorknob. The doorknob is a luxury. We invented the refrigerated truck, the air conditioner, the security systems, the potato chip, ice cream. We invented ice cream. That's luxury. We invented catering. We the things that are considered luxuries in America come to us. What we mean to the American economy, the cotton gin. See, one thing we don't do a good enough job of is connecting our inventions to the economy and how it boosted America's economy. The United States wasn't the only place producing cotton in the world. What made United States cotton when cotton became king, it's because of the cotton gin. Instead of, I'm gonna throw a number out there. This number is not exact, so I don't want nobody put it on their fucking calculator. Say, "You're the one, you only shut up. I'm just gonna throw some arbitrary numbers out there, but you're gonna get my drift. If without a cotton gin, a plantation can process, say 100 pounds of cotton a day because of the amount, or a week because they had to go through and pick the seeds out the cotton and treat the cotton by hand. The cotton gin made it to where a plantation can go from say 100 pounds of cotton a day to 3,000 pounds of cotton a day because of the cotton gin. And the gin being able to do in 1 minute what it would take a human to do in 1 hour. So that had a direct effect on the American economy. It's not just everybody had people that could pick cotton. There are cotton pickers all across the goddamn world that were slaves, but we were the ones that created the invention to make the cotton picking more efficient. The irrigation system, yes, we made America. Our inventions and innovation is what made America more efficient to make more money. There's a direct connection between we invented the telegraph. We invented think about us. We invented the fax machine and the telegraph. So if now and the telephone. So if now because we invented the telephone, you don't have to have a horse carry a message from Philadelphia to Boston. You can just make a call. You use our telegraph, Granville T. Woods, and fax it. Okay. Even before the telegraph, we were the Pony Express. We were the postal service. The postal service was black people. Stagecoach, that's the postal service. The Pony Express. So more than labor, we were very, very, very essential in America's communication systems. Communication systems are everything. The only way you can keep a country together this massive is with good communication systems. So not only we were the mail systems, and then when being the postal workers wasn't efficient enough, we invented the telegraph. We invented the phone. We invented superior communication systems, which by then made America superior to other nations. What's up, Jesse Paris? I ain't seen Jesse Paris here in a minute. I'm getting a lot of old schools back in here. Chief Colas, I ain't seen a few of y'all in a minute. Good seeing y'all. I get it. It's a lot of channels that I duck out on for a little while because I don't fuck with them, but I don't feel like listening to them niggas. Listen to somebody else for it right now. So keep doing what y'all do, man. I appreciate y'all for checking in every now and again like you do. Oh, Sonya T, that's another one I ain't seen in a minute. Salute to all y'all. Shit. I got some familiars up in this motherfucker. Um, but I think that we got to do a better job on this 250th year anniversary of drawing the connection of black innovation and American efficiency. It was the American efficiency that boosted the economy. This country being able to do things more efficiently than others. The steamboat. That's why black people that lived in Cincinnati, some of the wealthiest Americans, because of the steamboat. Before the steamboat, the sailboat, the Fortune family in Philadelphia. Black Philadelphia was equally as wealthy as white Philadelphia in 1820, 1830, because of the shipping industry. James Fortin, who fought in the American Revolution, captured by the British and imprisoned as a teenager. After the American Revolution and he was released, he opened up a company making sails. He had the best sails in the days of the sailboat. Those were black people making those that were owning companies making the sails. And he was one of the richest men in America, James the Fortin family, Fortn, Forten. Look up the Forten family, Fortune family. I didn't know who they were, but I was in Philadelphia a couple years ago, and I went to the. I had my flight got delayed by like 3 hours, and in that 3 hour delay, I went to the American Revolution Museum. And found out about who the Fortin family is. But they were shipbuilders and they made sails. And this is a black man that fought who never was enslaved. Parents weren't enslaved. Great grandparents weren't enslaved. Old school Philadelphia. And they were equally as rich as any white family in Philadelphia. My family was in Natchez, Mississippi in 1832. And they was owned by a white man named Hoggett. Last name Hoggett. And my great granddaddy was the grandson of the enslaved of Nathaniel Hoggett, and he invented the automatic railroad crossing. My great granddaddy's invention. Look at what his invention. Look how many lives my great granddaddy's invention saved. When trains come, there's a trigger to automatically lower the railroad crossing arm. How many millions of lives has my great granddaddy saved? The grandson of a slave out of Natchez, Mississippi. This is our relationship with America, y'all. We far more than labor. If we reduce ourselves to just labor, we are cutting ourselves off. Yeah, we invented the lottery, right? What's up, Brooks? We gotta remember that, people. You feel me, Jay Jemison? It's Martin, you stupid. What's up, Dad Miller? What's up, Against the Grain TV? Salute to all y'all. Now let's go into the music part. Cause y'all know that's my favorite subject. One of America's biggest exports now is music. At one point, it was like the second biggest exporter in America at one point. I don't know where it is now. But music is always somewhere in the top five. Now, what they'll do is they'll group it up and say American entertainment, music. Music is America's diplomacy wing. Read a book called Creation of the Media by Paul Starr. And it talks about Black American music being the the lead for diplomatic relationships that America establishes. When America wants to establish diplomacy around the world, they lead with Black American music. And one thing we got to do is, I get what you said, Tony Red. We've been told a lot like this comes from that region, this comes from that city. We have to understand this. There's no region, and there's no one city that is so far ahead of everything. We gotta take ownership as Black America, not as a New Yorker, not as a Philadelphia, not as a Los Angeles Angelino, not as a Houstonian, not as a someone from Memphis. All of us play a major role in that pot. When we get caught up in the regionalism, that opens us up to get our stuff stolen, like what's happening in New York. New York is so regional. Now hip hop being so New York, now all the Caribbeans all the Latinos who hate black people get to claim an aspect of the culture. They hate us. But because they're from the Bronx, people are giving them legitimate claim to our culture. So that's what regional things do. When you talk about jazz in New Orleans, they try to just zero jazz down to New Orleans. And when they do that, they say, well, there were Haitians, there were French, and it's the Haitian and the French admixture in New Orleans being a world class city that because all these other people were here, and that's why we get jazz. They claim things through our regional beefs and our regional biases. That's the method in which they claim our creations. When we're fighting over regions, they're claiming it all. Now, I want you to think, yes, man, and I'm either right or wrong. While we're fighting over regions, they're claiming it all. Jamaicans aren't saying that we're foundational to New York style hip hop. They're saying we're foundational to all y'all niggas hip hop. Haitians ain't saying we're foundational to New Orleans style jazz because New Orleans style jazz is distinctly different than Kansas City style jazz. They're claiming it all. Our tribal beefs, our internal beefs, open up the door for other people to claim it all. So until we recognize that we have a special uniqueness here in this country, whether you call yourself black, freedman, freeman, ADOS, whatever the fuck you call yourself, understand that is going back to the people rooted in this country before 1776. You can call yourself whatever. I like black. I think black's a beautiful word. I wear a lot of black. Soil is black. The universe is black. Every color comes from black. Plants grow from black. Stars are born from the black. When your company is in the black, you're doing good. Black is a beautiful word, but somehow people allow people without black in them to flip such a beautiful word into something negative. If you choose to go with the negative connotation, own that for yourself. I don't own that. Black is the foundation for everything. Like it's a blessing to be called black. You literally being called the foundation, right? Thank you, humans. When black is where everything starts. And yeah, somehow we let people trick us into thinking that's a bad word. Mm. Back to what we're talking about. America at 250. Going back to the music. Let's go back to the music. Yeah, hit the like button on the stream. Think about it. It takes a lot of money to extract oil from the ground. So divine God Allah. It takes a lot of money to extract oil out the ground. Takes a lot of money to harvest solar power. Solar power takes a lot of money to build wind turbines and takes a lot of money to get the infrastructure to build dams and create electricity from water. But how much does it cost to write a song? How much does it cost to record a melody? It costs very little money. Once you buy the microphones and the tapes, only thing you're paying for then is the time from the musician. And out of this minuscule, you can't even add compare the investment it takes into a song to the investment it takes to extract oil. So basically, music is this thing that's 100% profit. Costs about a grand to make Thriller. The whole album probably costs a couple $1 million to make. $1 million to make because you had to pay the engineers and the marketing and promotion. Once you had a marketing and promotion, a few $1 million for Thriller. How many billions of dollars is Thriller made? Now, multiply that by dozens of black artists in dozens of genres, hundreds of genres that give way to non-black artists. And we create these things in A's time and time and time and time and time again. They didn't have to put that much money into the Beatles and Rolling Stones. You don't have to build pipelines. You don't have to build coffers to store the oil. And you don't have to build nuclear facilities and things that could damage the earth. You don't have to pay all this crazy labor costs. You basically get it for free because the music comes from the spirit. And so America makes all this money off of our music without having to really pony up anything. And this didn't just start recently. Yeah, drill music does come from the spirit. You know, all spirit ain't positive, right? Anyway, positivity and negativity are also spiritual. We live in a world of duality. There are good prayers and there are evil prayers. It's all human. And we have the ability to draw it off. And then once we get it from spirit, everybody else can copy. That's another reason why I be off all that. Man, stop this Africa talk, especially with our music. Africa ain't got shit to do with it. If you're a creative person, yeah, neutral duos does exist. That's what zero means. Protons, electrons, neutrons, atoms. That's why I fight so hard on the whole Africa shit. No, if you know music, you know that shit come from your spirit, man. You ain't sitting around thinking about going back to Zimbabwe, then hear my song. Nigga, you be driving down the street, minding your black. You be in the shower, minding your black ass business. Then here comes a song. Innovation comes from spirit. It don't come from no fucking memory. If our music came from DNA memory, then why isn't our music being replicated everywhere Africans went? Huh? That's the one question that nobody seems to answer. Africans went to Canada. Africans went to the Caribbean. Africans went to Brazil. They went to Mexico. They went to Europe. And hell, the African slave trade started with them going to the fucking Middle East, Saudi Arabia and shit. India, Saudi Arabia, Nigga, they've been taking Africans longer than Europeans. Why ain't they fucking DNA memory wake up? Somebody said the first American slave owner was black. Well, what if I told you King James was black? If I told you the oh, excuse me. What if I told you the Jebbiots were black? The Jebiot Revolution, the Jebiot Revolt, those were black people in England. What if I told you Dark Ages were black kings and queens all throughout Europe, Germany, all those castles that you see in Germany and Norway were niggas? What if I told you that? If white people built them castles in the 1200s, why can't they build them now? Can you answer me that? If white people built those castles that are in England, why is Buckingham Palace so fucking ugly? You been a history major don't mean shit. All that means is you read the books that the Rockefellers approved. You ever think about that? History major? All college is you reading some books that they told you to read to draw you to a particular conclusion. I have a college degree, so I understand that. And that's always in the back of my mind anytime I go back and reference my college degree. I understand that my college degree is relative to the people, the dregs, the people who run society, and I understand that things like teacher tenure is directly tied into the Rockefeller Trust and how the Rockefellers infiltrated education in the 1890s and rewrote a lot of the books. So understand that for true education, I must go outside of my formal American education knowledge. My education comes from what I learned outside the system. Now, one thing I do appreciate the American educational system to do with is it taught me how to research. Anthropology taught me the difference between a primary source and secondary source. My education in statistics taught me how to read and weigh numbers. My education in communication studies taught me how to explain my research. So I learned those core principles in college. Now, as far as the actual history that college taught me, I know that a lot of that shit's a lie. And the real truth I had to learn outside of that system. So you're not impressing me with your college degree. I have a college degree. My wife has a college degree from Duke fucking University. My wife is a damn near Ivy League. Well, she actually did get accepted to Harvard. My wife got accepted to Harvard, but she chose Duke. So your education doesn't impress me. Back to what we're talking about. You said audio's funny? Hold on. How's my audio now? How's my audio now? Cool. I'm finding now that I gotta close my app and then come back in for some of this shit. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. I don't want to have messed up audio. But understand that if you have a college degree, understand that, and just if you any formal education, understand that your formal education came through the Rockefeller indoctrination system. and most textbooks are cleared through the Vatican. The Vatican is what approves a lot of our education systems. And it's the reason why the Rockefellers paid so much for research in the 1800s, was because they paid those researchers to publish their books so that they can rewrite their books. That's why if you ever watch shows like who person number one, if you ever watch that show Pawn Stars that comes on the History Channel. I don't really watch it no more, but I used to watch it a lot like 10 years ago. Person number one, if you watch Pawn Stars. Y'all remember Pawn Stars? They have comes in and she checks the value of books. And she always says, of course, it needs to be clean and pristine. But the first volume is the book that's generally worth the most. Press number two, if you remember that, it would always basically come down to appreciate you, mods, for knocking out the unfunnies. You ever ask yourself why is the first edition most valuable? The reason the first edition is most valuable is because you're going to get the most truth out of the first volume, especially those old books from the 1800s and the 1900s, early part of the century. You want those first editions because the first editions is what the researchers saw. And what they would do is they would keep that, and then immediately, if you got the first edition, you got it. But those first editions were pulled off the shelves a lot pretty fast, and second editions came out. And it's in the second and third editions of the rewrites. It's the second and third editions that show the, the author's observation was okay, these black people, when they were, just say, investigating here in the Americas, the University of Chicago has most of the information from the Americas. And I get this information from Dr. Clyde Winters. We've interviewed on the channel before, twice, for those of you who've seen it. And he taught at the University of Chicago. And a lot of your history on the Americas is at University of Chicago, a Rockefeller school. And a lot of those first edition books, you see images of how the Americas looked then. You hear the stories about the renaming of the native tribes and that were into Negro and all this stuff. But when that second edition comes out, them Indians are gonna look like goddamn what was that dude's name? he died. Them Indians are gonna look like Lou Diamond Phillips. And they're gonna say that okay, it was nothing here. That second and third edition is gonna have a whole rewrite. Yeah, University of Michigan is another one that holds a lot of secrets. Harvard, University, but as far as the Midwest goes, yeah, University of Michigan, University of Chicago, number one. That's why the first edition is so valued the most in older books because you'll get the most truth out of a first edition. First editions were often pulled and weren't put out there in mass. Those second edition rewrites is what's most popular. So understand that is the hole in your education. We weren't educated, we were indoctrinated. Yep. Yeah, under the face of Asian American minimum $500, right? Yeah. So before 1933, especially first editions before 1933. Man, think about it. America was a totally different country. It's so much that we don't know about this country. Hold on. What's that? No, I don't want that. This is what I mean by this. There's strong evidence of America being an extension of Tartaria and Tartarian civilization. Think about this for a second. Chicago, San Francisco, around the turn of the century, well, Chicago for 1881, these cities had major fires that burned down most of the city. These weren't fires like here in California. The fires here in California be off in rural areas where people don't live usually. Well, other than what we just saw happen with Palisades and Altadena. But these Chicago fires were, what was there before those fires? We all know about the city of Cahokia and the Cahokia Mound. The Cahokia, where those Cahokia Mounds are down there near St. Louis, that was a city of over 40,000 people just 300 or 400 years ago. You know what they did with stone and brick? They broke that stuff down and turned those into roads. That's what happened with a lot of your stone and brick. They became roads. They became bridges. They got repurposed. They got grounded down and took other forms. That's what happens to like your stone and brick. You look at you look at like it just those images, those photos from the World's Fairs. Do you believe them when they say they built those massive buildings to take them back down? I want y'all right now. I want y'all right now to open up a separate tab and type in World's Fair era Buffalo, New York. World's Fair Chicago. And look at those massive buildings. St. Louis. What they're going to tell you is those buildings were built for the World's Fair and they were later destroyed. They were literally originally created to be um temporary displays for the World's Fair. And that's what they're going to tell you. The next question you have to ask yourself is, do you believe that? Ask yourself another question. What's more plausible? These were structures that been there, probably been there for hundreds of years. And as America moved forward, wanted to tear down any remaining remnants of a prior civilization. What's more plausible? I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm just throwing the thought out there. Go look at those World Fair buildings in Buffalo and Chicago and St. Louis and ask yourself, is the people who lie the most, the people who not only will lie the most, the people who are very boastful. America's very boastful. LA still got the Memorial Coliseum from 1932. I drive past it almost every day. When America builds big, great things, America says, hey, look at what I built. Look, hey, look at this. Look at what I built. When America builds something that extravagant to tear it down, that don't sound like America to me. I'm, like I said, we celebrating 250. Why are there images of these huge empty cities in history books? Do you really believe those were those cities? These are just questions. I don't know the answer. Were those cities occupied and the original inhabitants run off? The way I ran off the people in Wilmington in 1898? Let's just compare, let's just take what we do know about how people in this country operate. We know that in 1898 there was a democratically elected government in the city of Wilmington, black mayor, black city council, and the white residents were mad. They gave people a certain amount of time to run out, and they sat in trees and on top of buildings. And as black people were running out of the city of Wilmington in 1898, as documented, they picked black people off and ran a whole city government out of the city. So we're dealing with people who Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood. We're dealing with a group of people that's very efficient at running people out of cities based on the written history. So is it plausible that these huge empty cities we see when we go to libraries and you look at, if you Google empty cities and you see these nice big cities with nobody in them, is it plausible people will run out of those cities and replaced? Or is it plausible that they ran people out of those cities before they destroyed them and repurposed everything, destroyed the stone buildings, turned those into roads, the wood structures, burned them down and to rebuild Palisades? We know Chicago got burned down. How did the Chicago fire start? How did the San Francisco fire start? Why did so many major cities between 1880 and 1910 get burned down? These are just questions. You draw your own conclusion. I'm not leading anybody to a conclusion. I just want people to ask questions. What's more plausible? What's more likely? Why is it that they have these huge empty cities and we weren't taught about that in history? Why were we never taught about the World's Fair and that? We had a president that died at a state fair, William McKinley. William McKinley was also somebody that was against a lot of the stuff that they were doing with education. He was actually giving some kind of concessions to Black Americans. Why don't we talk about par- these massive buildings in the World's Fair housing incubators, incubator babies, and why were there so many babies that needed to be incubators, and who were these parents that were allowing their kids to be incubators at World's Fairs? You ever ask yourself that? Who are these parents that were allowing their kids to be put on display in incubators at World's Fairs in these massive, beautiful buildings. Why was the first film ever recorded in 1896 about a Cabbage Patch baby and Cabbage Patch kids? That's a fact. Look it up. First film, France, 1896, was about children being born in cabbage patches. In the first 20 years of American cinema, thousands of films. I wish I had the book. I have a book upstairs that I'm reading right now with images from these days. Y'all gonna hear a lot of that. 4th of July weekend. It's gonna be a lot of them fireworks. I don't know if y'all heard that, but expect more. Yeah, and it was a woman who directed it. With all this woman talk this, women talk that, all this women's liberation, women's empowerment, why don't women ever hear that it was a woman that was the first person to direct a film was a woman? Why have you never heard that? The first major director, the first major actress, person on film was a woman. With all this women's bullshit that they talk, why don't we ever hear that? I'll tell you why. Because that woman was selling Cabbage Patch babies. And America's trying to write that part out of our history. Cabbage Patch babies. And the and this whole era of Cabbage Patch children's that in timeline wise matches up with the orphan trains. Google orphan trains, images of orphan trains, and you see all of these white kids on these trains as orphans being distributed from the East Coast to the Midwest. Why am I bringing this up? I'm not bringing this up to be hateful. Yeah, test tube babies. Jack Nicholson was an orphan. Talk to a lot of white people, their grandparents are orphans. I remember I had this old white man I used to work with. He said he always talked about how his dad was an orphan. Why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing that up because they say a lot of these orphans came from Germany. That's what they say. Going off when you go deeper into the study of the orphans, they say a lot of them are on the streets of New York, Boston, Philadelphia, but their roots, a lot of they said that the orphans were abandoned by parents, and a lot of those parents were German immigrants. So two questions. Okay, let's just go with that. These kids weren't born in in the cabbage patch. They were given up by their parents. 500,000? What kind of society is America if that many children can be given up as orphans? Like we as Black Americans, we were enslaved, but we weren't giving our kids up as orphans. So how is it slaves? Let's deal with the freedmen. Let's deal with people who weren't enslaved. The free Black people who weren't putting children in orphanages. A family member will take it. My great grandmother, her mom died very young, so her uncles took care of her. Like we ain't doing that. So why am I bringing this up? While they have us running from America, and we've been here since before there was an America, you got people that were a large majority orphaned while they're telling you you were a slave. Well, you was a fucking orphan. Your mama didn't want you. Okay. For me, slavery was a condition. Your mama, let's go with the incubators and say that they were actual children. They weren't created in a lab. Let's say that. Let's just say that, okay, these are not test tube babies. Let's go with what they at the World's Fair. These babies were given up by parents. What that mean? Your mama got a sour pussy, and she ain't want your ass. Uh, I actually, my great grandparents may have been enslaved, but at least they wanted me. They got you running around being ashamed and we was the slaves and we was the labor. Well, a lot of these people were the labor too. That's why the orphan train movement existed. The orphan train movement coincides with the Homestead Act. Chat room. What year was the Homestead Act? No, I don't remember that movie, Andrea Jones. What's up, Dad Miller? 1865. What year did the orphan train movement start? Hmm. Hmm. Orphan train movement started in 1864. The Homestead Act was in 1862. 1854, yeah. 1850, California became a state in 1859, 49, 1849. When did California become a state? 1849? The West was being filled in. Illinois, Indiana became a state in 1808. See, this is what was happening. The Louisiana Purchase happened. The Louisiana Purchase happened in what, 1804, right? So America had this whole vast territory that they had to push people out of and fill. You can't push people out unless you got the numbers to fill it in to where they can't come back. A lot of black people went to Indiana in the 1820s, including my family, 1835. A lot of black people were getting pushed out too. Oklahoma, why are they called the Oklahoma Sooners? Because the reason why the University of Oklahoma is called the Sooners is because the territory of Oklahoma opened up. When the territory of Oklahoma opened up, there was a date that people were allowed to start claiming lots, but you couldn't cross over into the territory until that date. Well, there are a lot of course, white folks that cross over into that territory early, and they claimed the best of real estate because they did not wait for the date to go into Oklahoma. They got in Oklahoma sooner. So that's why the University of Oklahoma is named the Oklahoma Sooners. They crossed into the territory sooner than the date that they were supposed to. The Indiana Hoosiers, there was a black preacher named Hoosier, and the Hoosiers were people was an epithet at one point in America. They rewrote the history of the name Hoosiers now, But at one point in the 1840s, 1830s, Hoosier was a derogatory name because those were the white folks that was fucking around with the black and indigenous people, having babies by them. Those were the Hoosiers. A lot of this stuff is tied into black history. But when it come down to uh going back to the orphan trains, another reason why we can't keep talking about labor is because a lot of those orphans were only brought in to these families to work the land. So when you hear white folks saying, hey, we were slaves too, they're technically right. Now, they weren't slaves where it was something that was coded into law like it was for us, but they were pushed into these states as children to be field hands. And that's why a lot of them are so fucking stupid. They didn't get no goddamn education. They were field hands. So while we were sharecropping, a lot of these people that are now classified as white they were slaves to their own, but they were slaves to their own to these people that bought them through mail. They don't know where their mommy and daddy is. They don't know. They don't truly know what their homeland is. So all I'm saying is, while you're over here trying to get jit up off your spot by these so-called patriots, these patriots' granddaddies was orphans for real. The only purpose for being here was to work the land. Now, since they were later on classified as white, they got to own the land and they got to inherit the land that was passed down to them. But just think about it. All of if these people did it to us, you don't think the sexual stuff and all the exploitation that they did of black people in slavery, you don't think a good amount of these Midwestern folks wasn't doing that to their own mail order children? You got to really take a close look at who's labeling you, who's defining you, who's calling you the N word. Look at them. Look at them real close. Look at them. We don't do that enough. We don't look at them. So we think, I'm not gonna be American because I this and they did this to me. They did this to me. They did this to me. Well, who's telling you that? Yeah, those 16 kids in Ohio, right? Right. Like, this story, like they always say, like our people say, I'm not gonna call myself black because being black don't mean nothing in America. Well, you know what? Neither is being white in actuality, but it does in common law. You can say you're not black all you want. You're still going to receive the common law consequences of being black, no matter what you label yourself. Those classified as white, they're fucked too. Here's the difference. Their common law benefits, they have common law benefits, but the benefit is for the most part psychic. At least in the 1880s, you can get some free homestead land money. At least being white in the 1950s and 60s, you can get a cheap house in the suburb and you can get a good job. Being white had psychic benefits But there were some tangible benefits back then, a few more. Now, with the economy is the way it is, look how white folks. That's what's the reason why white folks so mad. Look at how many CEOs out there from India. Look at them tech companies. Look at all the Indian CEOs bringing in all these immigrants. Immigrants starting to take white jobs now too. Them motherfuckers is messed out. The wealthy extracted all. They say like all the growth of the economy post 1976 has gone to the top. Us, the regular folks, we have not benefited one dime from the growth, from the immense growth of the country, including white people. The difference is they're just still they still rather hold on to this label of white than deal with the issue. That's why we even as black folks, even though we see what it is, you still got to be cautious. And not just white people of all mixed people that have all these other mixed races. They're if they're not classified as white, they're doing whatever it takes to be grouped with white, and whatever it takes to be grouped with white means harming black. That's another conversation. What is our relationship with America at 250 years? What are you willing to hold on to? That's the question. And I don't have the answer for everybody. I have my answer for me, but you have to figure it. I'm just raising some questions tonight for us to figure it out. You classified as black, and no matter how you feel about it, no matter what you call yourself, you're going to suffer those common law consequences. That's why I just go with it. Yeah, I'm black. I can call myself Nawapian if I want to. I can call myself Bangladeshian. I can call myself Christian. I can call myself Muslim. I can call myself ADOS. I can call myself Freeman. I can call myself whatever. I can call myself goddamn Pentecostal. But no matter what I call myself, the common law consequences of being black is what I will deal with in this country. But that's only sometimes. You don't deal with if you're not a criminal, yeah, we get pulled over. Yeah, I got pulled over. Yeah, I do. But the other 99.99999% of my existence is cool. I'm happy. Being black means family reunions. Being black means roasting and talking shit. Being black means having some dope ass music with some soul in it that feel good. Being black means like that nonverbal communication we have with one another. There's so many dope things that like, I love being black in LA, man. Even though we our numbers are dwindling, I love it, man. It's just the camaraderie, the way it feels good is our neighborhoods is it's a certain soul to what we do, the way we walk, the way we talk. Our lives, everybody's life has tragedy, but when you hear people talk about our experience, it's always, oh, the trauma, the trauma, the trauma. Everybody's traumatized. Well, you don't think them orphan kids are traumatized? They don't know who their great yeah, our great granddaddy was a slave, but at least we know the fuck he was. You don't think these orphan babies that aren't traumatized? You don't think people who had to immigrate from another country because that country was at war, you don't think they traumatized? Everybody's fucking traumatized. Titty. Cry two tears in the bucket. Fuck it. Now our trauma is deeper in a lot of ways, and it's tied to this land. But no one, when you're dealing with somebody who's been traumatized, they ain't got time to relate to your trauma. Even if somebody objectively was looking, they might say, okay, these people probably were more traumatized than those people. But trauma's trauma. Trauma ain't no dick swinging contest. If you're traumatized, you probably ain't got the space to really give a fuck about other people's trauma. We're trying to get we're trying to get trauma empathy from people with trauma. That's right. Everybody got their own cross to carry. Real talk. And we don't seem to understand that. We be thinking because we be reading these stupid books too, thinking they're telling the truth. Watching this stupid propaganda, thinking that they're telling the truth. We be thinking that, just because white people have a higher standard of living and higher income and live in better neighborhoods, we just be thinking that they got it all peachy cream. And no, the fuck they don't. They got hella trauma. Asians got trauma. Well, they've been betrayed. I hear them about betrayal, but they've been betrayed too. Look at it. Like, at least we have some semblance. Look at, let's take for instance, if you classify yourself as white, right? If you classify yourself as white, you were the slaves of Europe. You were the dregs of society, the criminals. And you grew up in a society that traumatized and betrayed you for 1,000 years or so going back in Europe. And you come to America and you're told that whiteness means something. Go go to downtown Seattle, a lot of these white cities, and all the meth. While the same country that told these people that their whiteness meant something sold their jobs to other countries, imported drugs from those countries, and allowed those drugs to be put out there on those streets. So you have all these meth heads and whole towns of white folks dying. They was betrayed like a motherfucker, multi-generationally. Everybody been betrayed. And so all I'm saying is not to it's it's useless measuring who's been betrayed more and all that stuff, measuring trauma. Because at the end of the thing, when it gets to the nitty-gritty, people who've been traumatized don't have room for your trauma. That's just what it is. People who've been traumatized don't have the space to have to deal with their trauma. So as long as we keep our connection to this country tied to, and our fight for reparations tied to, we were slaves and we was traumatized, that never get in there because you're dealing with people who were traumatized themselves. They're far more than trauma. Our story is far more than trauma. Our music is far more than trauma. We have a much bigger story than the trauma story. That's an aspect. The trauma is an aspect of the story. The difference is, out of our trauma, get in Nat King Cole. Do y'all know how important Nat King Cole is? Do people know what Nat King Cole did? Have you ever taken the time to listen to Nat King Cole's music? Talk about class. sophistication. He built Capitol Records. Yeah, grace. That's right. Grace, love, compassion, gentleness. They always go right to, man, we was, and it is true, but it's an aspect of truth. Man, our music come from the blues in the South and all the oppression and anger and whew, we was just so sad. Ooh, and we just the blues is whew. And although that is truth, it is a particular truth. It's not the complete truth. James Hemingway, like I said before, in the year 1805, James Hemingway was the best classical musicians on the planet. Black man out of Philadelphia. Frank Johnson was touring Europe. Classical music. Wasn't no, these niggas were never slaves, but they were touring Europe, selling America to the world. Nat King Cole. When people around the world thought of America in the 1830s, 1840s, they thought of Duke Ellington. They thought of Nat King Cole. Two of the classiest men ever. The sadness in the blues is an gotta get used to the word aspect. It's an aspect of our culture. What happens is the negative aspects or the downtrodden and the tired aspects of our culture get retold and repackaged as the wholeness of our culture. And that's just not true. Take some time to listen to Nat King Cole. That's real talk, Brian. All that positive stuff that they call American, that's us. But we're told to only focus in on the part about slavery. And that's the problem. Need a new car to roll my weed with. Got a new car to roll my weed with. Think about that. Listen, just take some time. I encourage y'all tonight when we're done to take some time with Nat King Cole. Just give Nat King Cole about 30 minutes, 20 minutes of your time tonight. Listen to a handful of songs. Just pay attention to the sophistication, the love. There's also an aspect of our culture. Being the people who created catering. Think about going back to our culture. We are the people that gave America the paramedics. We're so compassionate in spite of our trauma. We're so passionate. We create the first EMS company, the first place that went and rescued people who were near death. You gotta have a you gotta be more than just a traumatized people to invent that. No, Bill, you gave America crime and violence because you are the ones that Europe emptied its prisons for. You descend from prisoners. The best of the best Europeans stayed in Europe. You came from either two places. You either came from a prison, Bill, or you came from a cabbage patch. Which one is it? That's something I think we gotta really understand as black folks when you hear, and I ain't talking about all white people because there's some that ain't like this. And that's why I say judge character. Just like it's a lot of niggas that ain't shit. You don't want to be around so many people, folks, just because they black. Hell nah. Hell nah. They gonna be the first one to fuck you over. Look at Jay-Z. You look at how people move. But people moving like Bill in the chat, you come from either two places. Your great great granddaddy was a prisoner or born in a test tube. Okay? That's what be tripping me out about when we listen to these other people try to tell us our history. Your granddaddy didn't know who his mama was. So how the fuck you gonna tell me about anybody's history? And then for the ones who were here, the Ellis Islanders, they weren't here either. We're about to celebrate America 250 with a president that got here 100 years ago. Think about that. I can name ancestors that was here in 1776. Kendrick Johnson's one of them. Mary Bell Roberts. Ah, Francis Joan Took. Leroy Took. I can name people who were alive when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Can you, Bill? No, because you came through Ellis Island. And your family was picking lice off their necks while my family was celebrating the independence of a new nation because they fought on the side of the Americans, of the American patriots, and not the side of the British loyalists. You see? Oh yeah, that's yeah, it's Fourth of July's coming up, man. My neighborhood. No, y'all hearing a lot of fireworks. This shit cracking tonight. So just understand that, black people. 8 out of 10, a lot of your WASPs, white supremacists, or I mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, that's they're rare now. A lot of your white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, they don't have the numbers they used to have. The majority of the people that you see now classified as white, they're Ellis Islanders, meaning they came at the earliest 100 years after the founding of this nation. But they'll come to you, label themselves Americans, and say that they know your history. I only brought up the orphan trains and the Cabbage Patch Babies not to be mean, but to paint a picture to the listener of who you're listening to, who is telling you your history, who is telling you you're not American. While you was unenslaved and free, you were free from slavery before they was hatched out that Cabbage Patch. Remember that. You was walking around in 1890. You were in 1870 rebuilding the nation after the Civil War. You were rebuilding and you were building up Birmingham, Alabama in 1890, New Orleans. Mobile, Alabama, and Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Notches. You were part of those economies, and you listening to somebody who was at that same time in a cabbage patch. Think about it. Very much so, Johnny come latelys, right? It's the reason why our education systems are segregated. We don't know what the fuck they learned in white school. We weren't there. Think about black folks. We don't know what they was taught. We don't. We were even post segregation. We were still in segregated schools. We really don't know what they was taught in white school in their homes, but they were taught by people who weren't even there. Yeah, I think Chud's a Cabbage Patch Kid. How else can you be that inhumane? Yeah, be better think. But we're gonna talk some more tomorrow. I got a show tomorrow we're gonna do. I saw this episode of Godfrey's podcast about tomorrow, all right? Or later on today, I should say. It was already past. Sorry, July 3rd. I'm about to walk Rocky. So we raised some good questions tonight. I want y'all to draw your own conclusions. All right. Y'all have a good one.